Imagine for a second walking into an Ikea, expecting to buy a bookshelf or a table or meatballs, I don't know.
It's like boiled meatballs. Look at them, it's like cat food.
But instead find a near infinite space of bookshelves, and then turning back, you find the exit door has disappeared. This is exactly what happened to a very unlucky, unnamed protagonist in the tale of SCP-3008. SCP-3008 is a retail building resembling the Ikea design. When going inside of it, however, it transports the person to what is believed to be an infinite space, referred to as SCP-3008-1. During an incident, a man was seen running outside of the Ikea building when he was caught and killed by SCP-3008-2. We'll get to that in a minute. The man was carrying very valuable information inside of an Ikea-branded journal, containing multiple journal entries of his time spent inside. The Ikea journal has by far some of the most valuable information and makes up most of the SCP entry. The journal starts off with the narrator talking about how he has been trapped in the Ikea store for 2 days, during which he hasn't seen a person the entire time. After initially thinking it to be a prank, he backtracks, only to find the exit door has completely disappeared. At 10 PM, the lights go out. The store actually has a day-night cycle indicated by the overhanging lights inside. Our narrator uses his phone torch to find a bed and proceeds to go to sleep. The narrator also ends up finding a restaurant that serves meatballs, but the weird thing is, no one is around to serve them. Even weirder is they're still fresh. But hey, at least he has food. At 9:10 AM, the lights go back on, and the narrator, not knowing what to do, decides to pick a random direction before moving forward. During day 3, after walking for 3 hours, the narrator finds a ladder next to a stock shelf. He claims the building seems to stretch on forever, but during his climb he sees what looks to be a person. The entry reads, "Thought it was a staff member at first. It was wearing the uniform, and hell, maybe it was. Maybe freakish 7-foot tall monsters with long arms, short legs and no faces are just the kinds of thing they want working at Super Ikea." It didn't respond when he tried talking to it. He thinks about shoving it to get it to notice him, but claims its hands are big enough to crush a watermelon and avoids that option. These are actually instances of SCP-3008-2. The narrator enters the table section and, using a bunch of tablecloths, makes a homemade bed before the lights go out. His phone also runs out of battery, meaning he can't use his flashlight. Narrator notes how even though he cannot find a way out, he can at least see he's making progress due to the overhead signs. On the 6th night, he claims to have found other people. During the night, 2 staff members tried to attack him, simultaneously saying calm sentences like, "The store is now closed," and other weird phrases. He then finds a place lit up with torches and floodlights, a whole town built out of beds, tables, and other pieces of furniture. 2 people see him coming and open a gate, allowing him in. Just in time, the 2 staff slam into the gate. The town is referred to as Exchange, since the sign hanging above them reads Exchange and Returns. It's a town with about 50 people, and everyone there appears friendly and organized. The narrator finds out that there are other towns scattered about the giant Ikea building. He writes, "How can that many people go missing with no one noticing? Surely someone would have noticed that everyone who goes to Ikea seems to fucking vanish. Or maybe it's not everyone. Maybe we're just the lucky ones." Some more valuable information that he notes is that the staff will go rampant during the nighttime and remain perfectly calm during the day. Daytime is when people search for food, water, and other supplies through the various restaurants. Restaurants in other areas of the store also get restocked at random times. Often, since restocking takes a while, the food needs to be rationed out. The residents of Exchange claimed how they stopped keeping track of time a long time ago, whilst a person named Chris said he'd been in there for years. The journal is then filled with illegible scribbles. There are also rumors in the town of people finding exit doors only for them to disappear. The narrator notes that several miles east is a building made of wood that reaches all the way out to the ceiling. The journal reads, "Maybe they were trying to break out through the roof. Lights up at night, so there must be people there, but it's apparently a few days walk, which means it must be miles away, so no one here really knows for sure." During an expedition to find food, the narrator notices a telephone on the wall, although answering it only leads to a bunch of incoherent sentences being read out loud with no meaning. Narrator thinks about how there isn't any weather inside of the building despite its enormous size. The temperature, he notes, always remains the same. During nighttime, the staff attack Exchange. About 20 or 30 of them were asking people to leave the store and trying to break the walls with their hands. The journal reads, "Apparently this happens pretty regularly, so everyone is prepared for it. Knives from the restaurants, lawnmower blades made into hatchets, a fire axe. One guy, Wasim, even made a functional crossbow. Anyway, the walls have holes in them which I hadn't noticed before, specifically so we can stab out at the staff when they attack. The staff seem to go down easily without bleeding and die after a few major wounds." The next day, they haul the bodies away to a place called Pickup. Turns out the dead Ikea workers will attract other live Ikea workers, and so to prevent being overrun by them, they have to get rid of the bodies. The pile is described as hundreds and possibly thousands of dead staff piled up. People from other towns come by from time to time to check in or trade supplies, and interactions remain relatively friendly. About a dozen people from a place called Trolleys show up. These individuals claim to be the only survivors out of 100 people, as the staff ended up breaking through their defenses. Later on, during discussion, people are able to name over 20 different towns that are left. 2 months later, someone ends up dying. The staff also stick to a routine of only attacking Exchange once or twice a week, giving them time to prepare. During this time, the narrator notes a quadcopter flying through the town with a camera attached to it. He gets excited, thinking it means someone is looking for them, but this is actually a common occurrence. The entry then goes off to note that researchers of the SCP Foundation had in fact sent a drone during this time and were able to get footage of a town built under a sign labeled Exchange and Returns. Attempts to relocate the settlement have failed, although eerily enough there is no record of the Foundation previously sending in a drone, which is a contradiction to the statement written in the journal. During dinner, the narrator decides to talk to people about stuff they miss from home. People talk about their families mostly, but one person claims to have a pet llama. Interesting. 3 people also claim to have never heard of the International Space Station, whilst another person never even heard of the Statue of Liberty. That's when the narrator realizes that perhaps the people in the town are each from different realities, thus explaining why they have significant gaps in knowledge. That also explains why there isn't a mass search to find people lost in the building, and it also explains why there have been multiple drone sightings outside of the expedition the Foundation made. The routine has remained partly the same, with a few people showing up every couple of weeks. People continue to interact with other towns and continue to trade supplies. The attacks from Ikea staff, however, have increased to 3 or 4 times a week, with twice as many staff. During the day, the narrator tries to follow the staff to see if they lead somewhere, which they don't. The people of Exchange decide to reinforce the walls and arm themselves with more homemade crossbows. Later on, the attacks get really bad. Ikea workers attack nearly every day, and the body pile is high enough for them to climb over each other. The last entry in its entirety reads, "Exchange is. I think Exchange is done. We got hit pretty badly last night. Not many casualties, but the wall is wrecked. We finally figured out why the attacks had been escalating too. A box of supplies had a chunk of one of the staff in there. No idea how it happened, but apparently a piece of one will draw them as well as a full body. Too late now in any case. There's too many bodies for us to haul away and still have time to fix the wall before night. Candace has called a meeting. I suspect there will be talk of abandoning Exchange. Maybe try and get shelter at checkouts or something. It's already getting late though. I don't think we'll have time to make it. Maybe some of us will. I was fine for that first week out in the dark after all, but then how often can I keep getting lucky? I'm only writing this for a sense of closure, I guess, for me or for anyone who finds this. If this is the final entry here, I hope whoever's reading this is doing so from outside of this place. My biggest fear? If I do die tonight, I'll just wake up here again in the morning. This is a final entry, and he most likely got separated from the group, found an exit, and whilst being chased by SCP-3008-2, was killed. I guess in the end, he never really did escape the infinite Ikea building.